As you know, this is our third installment of discussing system features in the latest release, version 2026.0.1. And in this presentation, we're going to cover key characteristics of Quad ODBC. ODBC is Open Database Connectivity Interface for relational databases. It enables applications to access data from a variety of database management systems using a common interface, regardless of the database type or operating system. Hopefully after this session, everyone will have an answer as to what is Quad ODBC. It's APL64's way of providing a structured query language interface to interact with relational databases. It's driver-based using 64-bit ODBC drivers. The APL64 implementation of Quad ODBC is cross-platform compatible. But its applicability is mainly suitable for the Windows operating system environment because of limited availability of ODBC drivers for other operating system environments. And it provides access to multiple databases. Before you can use Quad ODBC, there are a few prerequisites to attend. The target workstation must have appropriate access to an existing ODBC compatible database. The ODBC database software may be installed locally on a server or cloud. The 64-bit ODBC driver for your preferred database and operating system environment must be installed on the target machine. Keep in mind that the APL64 does not incorporate ODBC drivers. However, there's a Microsoft ODBC driver for Microsoft ODBC Server for Windows, Linux, and Mac OS, but there is no Microsoft ODBC driver for Microsoft ODBC Server on Android. For some database software, there's no alternative to ODBC technology and Quad ODBC. Microsoft Access is an example of that, and we'll be focusing on Microsoft Access database in this session. While you can use Quad ODBC for SQL Server, it isn't recommended since the required SQL ODBC compatible driver adds an interface layer in the programming stack, which may have performance implications. And besides, the APL64 includes system functions specifically tailored to SQL databases such as Microsoft SQL Server, SQLite, MySQL, and IBM DB2. Okay, so the ODBC actions operate on either the Quad ODBC object or a Quad ODBC instance. The Quad ODBC object is a container for all Quad ODBC instances in an APL64 instance. A Quad ODBC instance is associated with a specific Quad ODBC database accessible to the target workstation. The left argument of the APL64 Quad ODBC system function determines if the Quad ODBC action applies to the Quad ODBC object or the Quad ODBC instance. The Quad ODBC actions are not case sensitive, whereas the Quad ODBC instance names are case sensitive. As with other APL64 system functions, there's the help or the question mark action will display summary documentation about each action. And also you can see the online help documentation, help APL language, SQL system functions using Quad ODBC to get more extensive documentation. on this system feature. Okay. Let's look at connection management actions. We have create, open, close, delete, and clear. The create action is performed on the quad ODBC object. It creates a quad ODBC instance with a user-provided name in the right argument. Multiple quad ODBC instances are possible in the same APL64 instance, so that multiple ODBC databases may be conveniently accessed. The create action will not fail if the named instance already exists. The create action will close and delete a pre-existing instance with the same name. The create action for a particular particular ODBC database is generally used once in an APL64 instance. The create action does not open a connection to an ODBC database. You'll use the open action for that purpose. The result of a successful create action is a text vector containing the quad ODBC instance name. The open action applies to a quad ODBC instance. For this action, you must supply the connection string as the right argument. It's important to use the quad ODBC close action when you're finished with ODBC activity so that the database is available to other database users. Okay, you can use a DSN as your connection string, or you can use an explicit string that identifies the ODBC driver that you're using, the data source, the database that you're accessing, and a username, user ID, and password if needed. The close action is performed on a quad ODBC instance, and it will close an existing connection and delete the associated quad ODBC instance. The last action type action is the clear action. It's very similar to close or delete actions, but instead of acting on a particular quad ODBC instance, the clear action is performed on the quad ODBC object. The clear action closes the ODBC database connection associated with any quad ODBC instance, and it deletes all quad ODBC instances in the current APL64 instance. And this action has no result. Okay. I can show you for the examples that I'll be showing in this demonstration. Again, I used a DSN or an access database that it's connected to. Okay. So retrieving data from the ODBC connected database, it's a two-action process involving the exec select query or its synonym exec select, and the get all records or get record actions. The exec select query applies to a quad ODBC instance. The action argument provides the ODBC select statement. Depending on the ODBC data type of a column selected, it may be necessary to cast that data column values to a data type which has a representation in APL64. The exec select query action returns an integer indicating the record set containing the result of the ODBC select statement. To obtain the values of the record set, use the get record or get all records actions and supply the result of the exec select query method to that. APL64 values may be substituted into the exec select statement. As you can see in this example here, in this filter, we have value substitution. So you're supplying the APL64 value. here. Okay. For Quad ODBC, it doesn't have to be Microsoft Access. You can also create a DSN or connect to the to Excel. There's a Microsoft Excel driver, ODBC driver for that. And this is an example of how you can connect to an Excel workbook and select data from a worksheet. Quad ODBC actions provide opportunities to modify data using exec insert query, exec delete query, exec with the update SQL statement. These three actions apply to the Quad ODBC instance. As the action name suggests, the exec insert action inserts values into the user specified table. Exec delete removes records from a specific table, and the exec can modify data in a specific table described in the SQL update statement supplied in the right argument, as you see here. Okay, the first right argument for the exec insert action is the table name. The second right argument is the comma delimited text with the selected ODBC table column names, or you can use an asterisk to indicate all table column names. The last argument here is the APL64 data. It's a matrix containing the APL64 values to be inserted. And in the exec delete, the right argument is the SQL statement saying what table you'll be deleting from and under what conditions. Okay, and then to modify data in an existing record in a table, you could use the Quad ODBC exec with an update SQL statement. The result of executing an update statement is the number of records that have been affected. You can bundle your ODBC executable statements in a transaction. Transactions group multiple ODBC operations, so they either all succeed or all fail or roll back. The Quad ODBC actions are begin transaction, execute your SQL statements, and either commit transaction or rollback tran. Transactions apply to the Quad ODBC instance. The begin transaction action for the ODBC instance named in the left argument indicates that that subsequent Quad ODBC actions will be incorporated into an ODBC transaction. An ODBC transaction may contain multiple Quad ODBC actions. An ODBC transaction can either be committed or rolled back. The begin transaction action has no result. The commit transaction action applies to a Quad ODBC instance. This action causes the effects of the current transaction to be applied to the connected Microsoft ODBC database. The commit transaction action has no effect if the begin transaction action has not occurred or if the rollback transaction has occurred. Prior to committal or rollback of a transaction, the effects of the existing ODBC statements in the transaction are pending effects in the ODBC database. The commit transaction action has no result. The rollback transaction action applies to a Quad ODBC instance. The rollback transaction action is used to cancel any pending ODBC operations, which are included in the current ODBC transaction. The rollback transaction action has no results, and it has no effect if no ODBC transaction is in progress. The exec stored proc action enables execution of predefined stored procedures or queries residing in the connected database. This action can be used to run a stored procedure. Some database types do not support stored procedures. Before using the exec stored proc action, it's recommended that you thoroughly test the stored procedure in the database software GUI. The procedure parameters are variables in the procedure code, which will be provided at runtime. The parameters are optional. Incorrect parameter values will lead to exceptions which prevent processing of the quad ODBC exec stored proc action. The right arguments to the exec stored proc action are the stored procedure name and the procedure data for the parameters, if there are any. The proc data is a matrix with one row for each parameter defined in the stored procedure. The order of the rows must correspond to the order of the parameters in the stored procedure, and all columns must be present in the proc data. For Microsoft Access, using the ACE ODBC driver, the store procedure must be a saved query in the database with one or more, or with none, rather, none or more input parameters. Output for the direction, output, input, output, and return value parameters are not supported in Microsoft Access due to limitations of the ACE ODBC driver and Access Trust Center considerations. For other database software, support for stored procedure depends on the ODBC driver software installed. For Microsoft SQL Server, input, output, input/output, and return value parameters are supported. So in this case, for the Microsoft Access connection, for the only direction is input. The get schema action returns ODBC database metadata. The content and format of the ODBC database metadata will vary with the specific database. Some metadata collection elements may have no representation in APL64. The get schema action returns elements, returns the ODBC database metadata. You can request metadata collections to see all available collections, or you can request columns, the tables, procedures. The call names in the results is a character matrix containing the column names of the metadata, and the result call info is a matrix containing the metadata results. The get connection state action applies to a quad ODBC instance. The result is of this action is a text vector indicating the connection state of the specified quad ODBC instance to an ODBC database. It'll be non-existent if we haven't executed the open action, and after that the connection state will be, the result will be open until we execute a close or a clear action. The get connection string action, this action applies to the quad ODBC instance. The result of the get connection string action is the ODBC connection string, if any, associated with the specified quad ODBC instance. You can use the open action to set the connection string. Now you can use the exec action to define and manage the structure of the database. The DDL commands deal with creating, altering, and deleting database objects like tables, schemas, and indexes. Okay, so here are some examples of those actions where we can create a table, drop the table, or alter the table, change any, add another column, or as we saw before with the exec statement, an update, how we'll modify any records in the table. Okay, so as a summary, I've included a reference guide here showing all of the quad ODBC actions categorized as object actions, the life cycle of quad ODBC activity, the data operations, and the transactions. So this concludes our discussion of quad ODBC in APL64. And I want to thank you all for attending this session. If you have any questions or comments about this topic or any other, I will unmute you, or you'll have to unmute yourselves rather, and you can ask your questions.